Welcome back to the Law School Toolbox podcast. Today we're talking about some of the scenarios you might encounter on law school exams. Your Law School Toolbox hosts are Alison Monahan, that's me, and Lee Burgess. We're here to demystify the law school and early legal career experience so that you'll be the best law student and lawyer you can be. We're the co-creators of the Law School Toolbox, the Bar Exam Toolbox, and the career-related website Career Dicta. I also run the Girls Guide to Law School. If you enjoy the show, please leave a review or rating on your favorite listening app. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can always reach us via the contact form on lawschooltoolbox.com, and we would love to hear from you. With that, let's get started.
Welcome back to the Law School Toolbox podcast. Today we're talking about some of the scenarios you might encounter on law school exams. Now, of course, this isn't a complete list because, let's be honest, anything can happen.
It's true.
And it does. But there are some common unexpected events that you can actually anticipate and be prepared for. Some of them have even happened to us.
Many of them, in fact. Yeah, and I think one of the biggest ones here really are the dreaded computer issues.
Oh, yes, I've had this happen to me.
I mean, we've all had it happen, which means it's not actually really that unanticipated. It happens absolutely all the time. I don't think there was ever an exam I was in where someone's computer did not have problems.
No.
So this isn't something you need to be prepared for on an exam.
Yeah.
You know, you need a plan for what you're going to do. If your computer suddenly freezes, you might, you could be losing work, whatever. So let's talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, I think the big thing is you need to be prepared to handwrite the exam.
Yeah, I mean, you at a minimum need to bring like a pen.
Right. You need to have a pen, maybe two.
Yeah, I would say several.
And you need
Make sure they have ink in them.
Right. And you need to practice in advance doing some of this essay writing because it's actually really hard to write these essays by hand if you're used to typing them.
It is. And there are things you can do, for example, skipping lines in a blue book. Because basically what's going to happen if your computer will not just immediately reboot itself is they're going to hand you a blue book.
Right.
This is also why we suggest always, always, always outline your answer on paper.
Yeah.
Do not outline your answer on the computer.
No, one more time for the cheap seats. Please, please, please outline your answers on paper.
Please.
Please.
Yes, we beg of you.
We beg it.
We know you're not going to listen, some of you, but you will regret this one day, I guarantee you.
Yeah.
Because what happens if your computer crashes and you can't get it restarted and they hand you blue books and you have the same time that you basically had before plus maybe 5 minutes to account for this, this situation, you don't have an outline anymore to your answer.
Yeah.
That's a major, major problem.
That is a major, major problem. And it's not like you can write on top of the blue book, oh, Professor so-and-so, my computer crashed. Please be nice to me.
Please give me extra points. They're not going to do that.
They're not going to do that. So, I also think one of the things about our typing lifestyle is when I'm we were just at a conference where I was hand taking notes, and you just realize how bad we are at handwriting these days.
Yeah, our handwriting is terrible.
It's terrible, and I don't have the muscle memory. I skip words because my brain is used to how fast I type, not how fast I handwrite.
Right.
And so, you have to be thoughtful about this, and when you're doing the handwriting in the moment, make sure that it's legible.
Right. If your professor cannot read it,
they're not going to give you points.
You're not getting points.
The other thing you need to do is by having this plan, you want to minimize the time that you are panicking because you don't get extra time. Your computer, I remember this happened to me for the first time that it happened in a criminal procedure exam. And you have this moment where you're like, luckily it happened early, so I didn't lose work, but I just remember getting handed the blue book, and then I have this moment where I'm like, I could fail this exam if I don't start writing, and I was kind of one of those people who didn't really think that I was going to fail anything, but then I realized I had a blue book with nothing on it, and if I didn't get my act together, I actually could fail that exam.
Yeah, I think, when your computer is having problems, you both want to try not to panic. But if you realize it is a problem, you need to notify someone immediately. I mean, at least for us, if you notified the proctor and they came over, they kind of started time clock and you got that extra time back at the end.
Nice.
The problem was you got it at the end when everyone else was finished and packing up and talking.
Yeah.
So that's another case where you really need to be prepared. You've got to have your earplugs. You've got to be prepared and ready to focus for that extra maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes when everyone else is finished. Because, that may be the 5 or 10 minutes you need to finish your answers.
And maybe you should make sure you know what the school's policy is about that. Because I didn't get extra time. It happened on multiple exams for me. I just had really bad computer luck that my computer hated that exam software.
Yeah, the exam software is definitely a problem.
Yeah. And
hopefully it's better now, but I don't think it's really
because they just had litigation over the bars
True.
software recently. And any time that you're trying to download stuff to your computer, it can get buggy. I mean, these are imperfect technologies.
And what they're trying to do is control your computer so that you can't do most things with it, which your computer doesn't really enjoy. So there are almost always going to be problems. I mean, to avoid this issue, you want to do whatever you can in advance by making sure that you've downloaded the software early, you've got the right version, you know how to log in if you need to log in, you know what functionality it has. You're familiar with how to use the functionality. I mean, certain professors may allow or not allow things like spell check, for example. If your professor allows spell check, they're probably going to have a higher expectation of your spelling.
Right.
So you need to be aware that, this professor wants me to use spell check, and therefore I probably should.
And you also typically want to turn off any automatic updates. That's where a lot of computers start fighting with the software, is when you load it and it gets kind of in your system. And then if you do, a lot of us have, my computer seems to have automatic updates like every day. I don't even know. But, it's always like, do you want me to update your whatever? And you just want to, for a while, turn off all of that stuff so you don't mess with the software.
Yeah, and I would suggest even, if your computer is several years old and you haven't done anything to kind of clean it up, you might even want to consider like a fresh restart of the operating system, for example.
Yeah.
Because you're saying all this stuff is downloading and installing. That's probably because you have, who knows, like hundreds of things on your computer that you're never even using.
I know, it's totally true.
So, you just want to be sure, okay, this machine is as clean as it possibly can be. I would say try not to borrow a laptop if possible. I mean, if it's unavoidable, the software doesn't run on your computer, and for you can't get a different one. But generally speaking, something you have used that the problem area is in, it's going to be more reliable. I mean, make sure your battery's charged in case there's a problem with the power strip. Make sure you have a reasonable battery life. I mean, I think most computers at this point should be able to get you through like a 3 to 4 hour exam on one battery.
Especially if you have your Wi-Fi off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, you just want to kind of think through this all. And if you're having computer problems, visit whoever is on your campus to kind of like try and deal with them as early as possible. Don't test the software like the day or two before the test.
No, you want to do this early. It's not something you should really be doing like even during the exam week. Because if there are issues, you want to find out what they are.
Yeah.
And I think, after the fact, you want to make sure that your stuff actually uploaded if you crashed in the middle. I talked to someone the other day who got a really poor grade because some of her answer didn't upload after her computer crash, and she didn't know it until she got the bad grade. Ugh. Then she went to talk to the professor, and they're like, oh, yeah, it looks like some of your answer isn't here. I mean, sometimes there are ways you can find out at least how many pages or that kind of thing, or how many words. And if you see it's like massively less than it should have been, then you can talk to someone about that.
Oh, that's anxiety inducing. I just feel anxious thinking about that. Like the fact that there's like missing answer and then you get a C- in the class. It's because your work didn't even get sent to the professor.
Yeah. I mean, this can really play to your advantage. I had one class where the worst computer disaster I ever had, it just crashed. But I used that time to sit and think about my answer, and I realized that my answer was 100% incorrect. It was a Fed courts exam. I was talking about a 1983, suit brought under statute 1983, which, as I vaguely recall, has something to do with police or not police. I'd mixed them up. I'd mixed them up. I'd written my entire answer, assuming it was the other one. I can't remember if it was like police or not police. And I had this moment of clarity while waiting for the proctor to try to fix my computer. I was like, oh, this is 100% wrong.
You're like, this is bad.
Yeah, this is very bad. So occasionally it can help you, but I wouldn't expect your computer to crash to save your grade. But in this case, it did, because I basically just marked out a big chunk of it. Was like, actually, no, this is not what I meant at all. So let's talk about that. I mean, you realize halfway through your answer, it's totally wrong. What do you do?
I mean, I think that is hard. I think want to stop and triage and think before you move forward, because you don't want to delete necessarily everything.
Right. I mean, I think the first instinct is just delete the 2 pages I just wrote. That is probably a bad idea. There may be something salvageable in there.
Yeah. I think you want to stop, triage, and regroup, and maybe get out that scratch paper, redo a quick outline, and see if you can salvage some of what you have, but then figure out how quickly you can move through the rest of the material.
Yeah, I mean, basically, this is probably not going to be your best score.
Right.
But we actually did well in that class, but, the professor claims he didn't read our answers, which I think was actually true, because there's no way I would have done well otherwise.
And if you can't clear your head, I think take a minute and, take 3 deep breaths, even walk out of the room, wash your hands, do whatever you have to do to basically get your act together. Because, again, I think there's that moment where, let's say you're an hour into the 3-hour exam and you realize that you've, gone down the wrong path. There is still time to mitigate it, but if you stop working, you could still fail.
Yeah, and I think too, you've also got to be really sure that what you think is wrong is actually wrong, because once we get stressed out, our brains don't work as well.
Right.
So, for example, the other day I had a situation with a company where I was mad at them for something they had done, and then I got mad at them for another reason. And I called them for the second reason. Halfway through the phone call, I was like, oh, wait, I think this was actually my problem. And it was one of those things where we're like, oh, grams. Oh, yeah, pounds, grams, not the same system. Okay, what? Never mind. So, you don't want to have that moment where you're like, this is totally wrong. And then you delete everything. And then you walk to the bathroom and you realize, actually, that wasn't totally wrong. And now it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. So you need to have a little bit of clarity. And, take a beat. You can take a minute or two to regroup if you need to. I think the same thing goes when your mind goes blank or you have testing anxiety. I mean, we've talked about this, the flight. We call it fight or flight, but now I've been hearing it say fight, flight, or freeze, which I kind of like, because I think for most people, they feel the freeze part of it. So what do you do when you do freeze up? And, you do need to have a plan for that. And so practicing, taking deep breaths, doing some sort of breathing exercise, tactical breathing. We've even seen some exercises where you're petting your own hand to try and kind of just calm your nervous system down, get up, go to the bathroom, splash water on your face. You need to go through all of your options of how you can calm yourself down so the blood and the oxygen go back to your brain, and then you will not be frozen anymore. The thing is, when people say, my mind got so blank, I couldn't even answer the question anymore, I doubt it's going to be that way for 3 hours. You have to have a plan.
It would be 3 minutes.
Right. You have to have a plan to get your body back to a state where it can think clearly, and then you're going to be able to start, referencing the material. It's not like all of the law was just put in the garbage can that you had in your brain.
Still in your brain somewhere. And I think another thing, this is also, I think, understanding that this is a pretty common situation then can help, because sometimes people think they're the only person this happened to. And it's no, there are other people that this happens to. And particularly if it's an open book exam, I think just taking a few minutes to look over, hopefully, your 1 to 2 page outline that you have in front of you, if you're prepared to put in front of you. So that, if nothing else, you're okay, I'm going to take some deep breaths, and then I'm going to look at this outline, and maybe that's going to trigger some stuff for me.
Yeah.
And make me think. Because if you've done that correctly, you probably should have identified the major issues in the course. And unless they've given the wrong exam, which does happen, and we'll talk about.
Yep.
It's not going to be something that you've never talked about or never thought about.
Yeah.
So it should be there someplace.
I also think even if it's a closed book exam, you should basically have that 2-page sheet memorized. And you can, and I have done this too, just, shorthand, kind of sketched out what that overall outline looks like, and just start at the beginning,
Yeah, exactly. It's you're in torts. You're okay, am I in the world of intentional torts? Does this look like an assault and battery? Or am I in the world of negligence? Or am I in strict liability? Okay, even something as simple as that can get your brain kind of working down the right pathway. And, you're at least okay, I know the universe I'm in now.
Right. I've also had students tell me that, if they can't get themselves going, they'll often go to their computer and just write the call of the question, break the page, into multiple sections.
Like Bob versus Jill.
Right.
Bob versus Sarah. And you're like, okay, it's giving me something
Step
to work
one,
with.
and then it's like having something on the page is just not anxiety inducing. The reality is, if you're someone who is worried that this is going to happen, I think one of the things that you need to be aware of is that it'll probably happen when you're practicing and getting ready for the test. Mm-hmm. So if you put yourself in exam-like scenarios to practice exams, you're probably going to have your mind go blank in that situation too.
Hopefully.
Which is great, because then you can practice getting through it. And so it's likely that this freeze reflex the first time it happens to you is not going to be in the exam room. But what happens, I think, when people are practicing is they freeze and then they say, I'm not ready to do the practice exam.
Right. It's like kind of defeating
Yeah,
the
I'm not
purpose.
ready to do it. So I'm like, peace out. I'm just going to like shut my computer and walk away. I think that's a mistake, because there's a learning opportunity for you there of how you fight through and get it done.
Yeah, for me, actually, I did have it happen the first time I took like a law school exam. Was the first time. It wasn't my mind went blank. It was that I read the question and I was like, okay, I'm pretty cool with that. And then I got up and I went to wash my hands and use the bathroom. And I came back and looked at this blank sheet of paper and basically had an anxiety attack. So what I learned from that was that I should never, ever, ever leave the room.
Get up and wash your hands?
No, until I had something on paper, until I'd started writing.
Yeah.
Because then, if I had my like outline on paper and then I had started writing, and sometimes it would even be like, I'd get up and leave at like the end of a paragraph or whatever, then it was like, okay, I can jump back in. But for me, I could not leave the room with a blank piece of paper, or it was incredibly anxiety inducing.
Yeah. At least you knew that forever after that.
Yeah, but I never learned that before.
Yeah. Man. So, but at least you came back and got your act together.
Well, I think I technically failed that exam, but it didn't matter because it was a pass-fail class that they ended up passing me in anyway. But it was actually very eye-opening. It really was.
Yeah. What about if you are just running out of time? Because time management is something we hear from law students all the time as reasons why exams go poorly.
Yeah, and again, like there are ways that you need to work on to avoid this problem. For example, if your professor has given you the breakdown of questions in advance and point values in advance, you can actually work out in advance exactly when you need to move on. I would usually subtract out like 5 minutes per question to give myself a little bit of a buffer. And as soon as I got the exam, I would literally write at the top of it or on a piece of scratch paper when I needed to move on to each question. And then you basically just have to make yourself do it in theory. Of course, that's easier said than done. If you are running out of time, I think it depends where you are in the test.
Yeah.
If you are 2 hours into a 3-hour test and you've only done question 1 out of 3, that's a pretty serious problem. You have 1 hour basically to do the rest, and you basically just have to split that time and do the best you can.
Yeah.
If you're 10 minutes from the end of a test and you're like, oh, I haven't done anything. If it's multiple choice, fill in some answers and hope for the best. I don't know. Do you have any great tips here? My basic tip is like, don't get yourself in the scenario.
Yeah, I think this is another thing that you've got to practice, and that people are very self-indulgent around. We see this in the bar exam especially, which is all the time. But I've had students tell me, like, I couldn't stop writing.
It's like, really? You couldn't pick up your hand from the keyboard and move on?
Because I
think you could.
Right. But I think we can get ourselves in these situations where we really believe that. It's like we are powerless to stop. And
I'm addicted to this question.
Yeah, exactly. And the reality is that's just not true. So one of the things that you have to do during your practice is force yourself to work under time conditions, so you are not only used to what that time feels like. When you're studying for an exam, and if you know the questions are going to be an hour long, like doing a lot of hour-long questions, you start to know what an hour feels like.
Right.
And that's important. Your gut reaction, kind of in your gut, you're going to have a feeling like, oh, I think I might be, going too slowly. Hey, look, I just got an automatic update thing on my computer while we're in this podcast because it's so annoying. Say, no, don't update. Anyway, but I think that diligence around this, making sure that you're not being self-indulgent, because here's the reality. If it's a 3-hour exam and you do practice exams in 4.5 hours, and you are writing the most brilliant practice exams in 4.5 hours, it doesn't matter, because they're not going to read past 3 hours. And so they don't care what you can do. The challenge of these exams is the best answer you could write in the time allowed. And I think that's the part that people don't practice, and then they are shocked when they're not able to perform under time constraints.
Well, and I think another mistake people make too is thinking, okay, I've got limited time, so I'm just going to read the question and then jump into my answer. that is a mistake. That is not going to probably result in a great, outcome. And you're probably also going to run out of time because you don't have any structure for what you're planning on talking about.
Yeah.
So taking, say, an hour-long exam, taking 10 minutes to make a pre-writing outline that basically lays out every single thing you're going to talk about and discuss, that is going to help you write faster in the end. So I think in practicing ways to do that, and then how do you make sure that you're actually getting everything from that outline to the page, because that's something we see a lot with the bar students too. We make them submit their outline. And then, oftentimes the tutor looks at the outline like, well, you would have done pretty well if you talked about everything on this piece of paper, but you didn't.
Right. It's so true. I know. I think that is a really good point. I think the other thing that I really learned once I was working in law schools and teaching classes and grading stacks of papers is that no one wants to read a brain dump. No one wants to read it. You think in the moment that your essay is some sort of special snowflake.
It's so brilliant.
But, a lot of these seminar 1L classes, they may have 50 more, 100 of these exams that they have to read. Think about that.
Yeah.
Like 100.
I've seen ones that are literally just one paragraph.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing, a whole page. Where's the break? Where's the header? Where are you going with this? What do you think? I can't even tell what you're thinking. I feel like you're just like, you've taken a lot of Adderall and you're just like talking. I'm like, what does this even have to do with anything?
Right. Or my favorite, the essay question that had no capital letters. So, I think there's this idea of like, well, I'll just write as much as I can and then I can get as many points possible. But professors want you to think before you write because it's hard to grade all of these papers if they are just brain dumps.
Yeah, you need some structure. You need to let people know where you're going. I mean, you might say, you've got to give them a roadmap to what you're talking about if they're going to be able to actually understand what your exam is. It cannot just be a stream of consciousness of everything that you've thought about in the last 3 hours.
Yeah. All right. So beyond what individual students can do, sometimes some wacky stuff happens that's not even your fault. Like sometimes it's not the right exam.
Yeah, I've heard of this happening. I've never actually had this happen.
I didn't either.
I had friends this happened too, where literally they handed out the wrong test. And people kind of read it and they were like, is this what we talked about? This doesn't really seem to correspond to what we talked about in class. And I think in that case, like, you have to at least ask, like, the proctor, hey, can someone confirm with the professor that we've got the right exam? Because in this case, the answer was no, we handed you the wrong exam.
Or I had some friends who were in a class where they were missing 25 multiple choice questions.
Oh, lovely.
So they were like, wow, only 25 multiple choice questions, not 50 multiple choice? That seems kind of weird. But it was that they didn't print the whole test. I had another class that I was a part of where a professor reused a past essay question as part of the essay. A portion of the class had that past exam as part of the academic support program.
Oh, that happened in my con law. It was it was an open book exam, and it was like a little bit, it wasn't exactly hidden. It was just kind of like far down a bunch of sample exams, and half the class had printed the exam, that particular one, and the other half hadn't. And people did realize, but then they thought, well, it's so old, like it's con law. Is it a trick? Like, is he trying to get us to talk about something else? That was not a great scenario.
Yeah. So you never know. The good lesson is always do the practice exams.
Right, all of them. At least print them all if they're going to be an open book exam.
But I think you also just have to be aware that these wacky things can happen. Now, I know that, when that happened in one of my con law exams, some people were really freaked out. I think they went and talked to the proctor, and the proctor was basically like, take the test that was given to you. And then afterwards, people got really upset. They went to the dean. There was a lot of dialogue around this.
Yeah, we had a whole thing. It was like, do we have to redo the exam?
Right.
Does he grade this exam? Does he grade a different exam? Does he just make up? I think in the end, honestly, points, they just made up grades.
And I think the reality is that in the moment, you don't have the luxury of freaking out. You take the exam that's given to you, and then it will get worked out, however it gets worked out.
Yeah, but I do feel like if you were told you would have 50 multiple choice questions, you only get 25, like that should at least be asked about.
Well, yeah, you should mention that to the proctor, but then go back and do the 25
you go back and sit down and do them, basically.
Yeah, exactly. What about if someone's cheating?
This is a tricky one.
This is tricky.
I mean, a lot of schools have an honor code. So if you see someone that you have reason to think is cheating, you're actually required to report them. I mean, what does it mean to think someone's cheating? It's kind of an open question. I mean, I know I've heard of people who are accused of cheating. I think you have to be careful, but if you really think, okay, somebody is looking at a phone or something they're not allowed to have, or
checking
whatever.
outlines in the bathroom.
Yeah, if you see something where you literally are like, this person is definitely cheating, I think you almost have to report that to the proctor.
But I think you need to do it quickly and not let it distract you, because you don't get extra time for being a good Samaritan.
No.
And going for the honor code.
No, and I think this also is a case where you want to understand what your honor code requires too. If it doesn't require that if you're basically not a mandated reporter, then you can decide okay, it's not worth it to me. The first place I went to college, their honor code, if you saw something you didn't report it, you were equally liable.
Oh, wow.
It was very, very, very strict.
I don't actually know what my honor code in college was.
Yeah, well, they made a big deal out of it.
I'm sure they did.
So, you just want to understand what the parameters you're operating within are. If you're required to report, you need to be prepared to do that. If you're not, and you're like, well, I'm not really sure what's going on, or I suspect something's going on, but I didn't really see it. Or even if you do see it, if you decide not to report it, well, that's your choice.
I think the biggest thing is to just not get caught up in somebody else's drama in the room, because you have to go back and do your own work.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you don't know. You don't know if somebody's allowed some sort of adaptive device or something. You think they're cheating, but actually they just have an accommodation that you're not privy to, which is completely their right.
Yep, exactly.
So yeah, focus on your own paper unless you see something very, very, very blatant.
Yeah, I think you want to stay in your lane. This is about you, and you're going to be evaluated what's on the page. Your professor's not going to also know that you spent 15 minutes talking to the proctor about something that you saw in the bathroom. Yeah, I think it's more something in the bathroom, or somebody you see with a phone, clearly in the room. You can be like, hey, I think this person has a phone. I'm going back to do my work now. Right.
They can deal with it.
Yeah, that's not your job. It's your job to maybe it's your job to tell the proctor, and then you go back, do your own thing. You do you.
Yeah.
Other things that can happen in the exam room is you get really tired. Maybe you even get sick. You're hungry. You're thirsty. Different schools have different rules about what you can bring into the room, how prepared you are. I know you are a big fan of bringing everything.
I always had snacks. I had caffeine. I had not caffeine. I had pretty much everything.
But now I enjoy the fact that you always have snacks, because we just had snacks right before this.
Exactly. So I was definitely a hoarder when it came to exams.
But, every school is going to have different rules about what you can bring into the room, but you want to try and prepare to not have this happen. So if you are used to having coffee in the morning and you have a 9 o'clock exam, you should have coffee the day of the exam, because you don't want to get to the exam and have a caffeine headache. If your exam runs over lunchtime and you're always used to eating at noon, then you want to practice eating earlier and making sure that whatever you're eating is going to carry you over, and maybe not experiment with exotic ethnic food that you've never eaten before on an exam day, so you're in the bathroom.
Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Well, and also I think if you're allowed, you can bring in your basic first aid kit. If you are my stomach is upset, well, I'll take a Pepto-Bismol.
Right.
Well, I've got a headache, I'll take an Advil.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. Sometimes you just have to kind of power through it. But to the extent you can prepare and be prepared for these, fairly inevitable things, you're probably going to get a headache at some point on an exam in your law school career. Take a couple of Advil, have a swig of water, keep writing.
Right. Or sometimes if you're ending up handwriting, people get hand cramps. They want Advil because their hands are starting to hurt. There are lots of different things that can come up.
Well, and also if you're getting extra time, I think this can be more of an issue. So instead of a 4-hour exam, now you're taking a 6-hour exam.
Right.
And so even if your school says, you're not allowed to bring food or water or whatever, you probably want to ask about that as part of your accommodations, because it's really hard to go 6 hours taking an exam without having any sort of snacks to eat, basically.
Yeah. And sometimes if it's a long exam, you may even get to have input on how it's broken up.
Right.
So you want to be thoughtful about that and think, when do you want to take a break?
Right. They may say, okay, there's half the exam's multiple choice and half's essay. You can take a 10-minute break between them.
Right.
Whatever it is, where you can actually eat something.
Yeah.
But you want to kind of clarify this in advance so that you're not 5 hours into this exam and you're like, oh, I never even had lunch because it started at 10.
I think if you get any sort of accommodations, you really want to make sure you understand how they play out. if you are testing in a separate room, if you have medical accommodations, if you have some medical accommodations require that you're allowed to eat and drink or be closer to a bathroom, or, there's just a variety of situations. Breastfeeding moms. You want to make sure you understand exactly what scenario you're going to get into, because you don't want to be in there
like arguing
with the proctor about what's going to happen. If you're a breastfeeding mom and you're like, okay, I'm going to pump, do you leave the room to pump? Do they give you a space to pump? Is the proctor going to leave?
Does the clock stop?
Does the clock stop? Do they take your computer? What happens? You just want to know so there's no confusion on the day of.
Yeah, and you probably want to have that in writing someplace, signed off by whoever approved it. So if there is an issue, you hand it to the proctor and say, well, this is what it says.
Right. Yeah. What about if there's an issue with the room? It's too hot, too cold, too noisy?
Well, you can ask once maybe, but basically you're going to have to suck it up. You need to have earplugs. You need to have a sweater. You need to be able to strip down to a tank top or whatever. You've got to be prepared for these things, because there's just no way to control that.
Yeah.
And again, you can't spend all of your time obsessing over the fact that somebody behind you is eating almonds,
chewing gum.
Yeah, chewing gum, making noise, clicking their feet.
The loud typists.
The typing.
Boom, 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 boom.
That's just it. It is what it is. So bring your earplugs.
Yeah, and then things happen outside.
Yeah, earthquakes, fire alarms. Yeah, all kinds of things.
Yeah, and so that is the type of thing where you look to the proctor to see,
are they leaving the room?
Are they leaving the room? Are they going to do something? Are they saying, that you're allowed to leave the room, but listen to what they say? Are you allowed to leave your stuff, take your stuff, whatever needs to happen? You want to look for guidance, because you don't want to, do a misstep and then all of a sudden
be accused of cheating or something.
Yeah, accused of violating some school rule that maybe you didn't even know existed.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, if it's a true emergency, then get out of the room and deal with it later.
Yeah.
But we're talking short of an actual real fire going on outside.
Right. Yeah. I think other things that you want to be aware of, if your school, sends out an email about the rules around how do they handle cell phones, everything needs to be powered off. Maybe certain stuff isn't even allowed in the room or with you, whatever. Every school's got different rules. Just learn that stuff beforehand, because one of the ways you can, eliminate these silly mistakes from happening is the drill. If you have a locker and you're not allowed to have your phone in the room, I would probably put my phone in the locker so it didn't accidentally turn on. These things.
You just don't want to put yourself in a situation that could be quite serious over something silly that you just forgot that you were carrying your cell phone out of habit. Have your checklist, probably pack. I would usually pack my bag the night before, have everything there by the door ready to go, so that I wasn't having to think about it in the morning.
Yeah. And don't be late.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's
Leave
the worst.
early, have a plan, don't be late.
I knew people even considered staying near the law school if they were not living there, so that they didn't have to worry about it in the morning. They just got up, they went to their exam.
Right.
That might seem excessive, but maybe you can stay on your friend's spare couch or something.
Right. And, making sure you have, like you said, by packing the night before. I think I had a friend who once forgot her ID. She forgot her wallet, and she had to race back to her apartment.
Sounds fun.
I know, to go get her wallet. She ran a red light and all this stuff because she had to have her ID or they wouldn't give her the exam.
Yeah, so make sure you know what you need and get that set up ahead of time, and hopefully you can avoid some of these problems, even if there are things that inevitably will probably still happen.
Yeah. I think my final thought on this is, one of the themes that has gone through this is there's a lot of stuff here that you can either prevent or mitigate by practicing, by educating yourself, by talking to your school. And so just spend that little bit of extra time making sure you understand what's supposed to happen, what's going to happen if things don't go well, so you can handle the situation as best you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that, unfortunately, speaking of time, we are out of time. If you enjoyed this episode of the Law School Toolbox podcast, please take a second to leave a review or rating on your favorite listening app, because we'd really appreciate it. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to reach out to Lee or Alison at lee@lawschooltoolbox.com or allison@lawschooltoolbox.com, or you can always contact us via our website contact form at lawschooltoolbox.com. Thanks for listening. We'll talk soon, and good luck on those exams.